Thanks for watching the Calvary Briefing. It is Tuesday, July 14th, 2020. I wanted to talk to you this afternoon or today or this morning, whenever you're watching this, about news. Most of us are familiar with the term fake news. We are familiar with the fact that major news networks sometimes state things in a way that make us believe something about the news. And I'm not going to talk to you about all of the fake news. You know that you need to read the news and listen to the news with a discerning ear. But I did want to talk about one bit of news that has come out that I wanted to alert you to, because people that you come into contact with might quote this bit of news to you. One of the things that happens in our world today is that a headline from the New York Times is somehow put on Twitter, and then that headline from Twitter is put onto Facebook or Instagram or something else, and headlines just run rampant. Well, recently the New York Times had an article about churches and the coronavirus. And this is the headline: churches were eager to reopen. Now they are a major source of coronavirus cases. The article starts out by saying, the virus has infiltrated Sunday services, church meetings, and youth camps. More than 650 cases have been linked to reopened religious facilities. Now, this headline has already hit the Drudge Report and many other sources. Thankfully, the New York Times actually changed the title of the article. But I wanted to put the article into some context for us. Did you hear the number 650? Since the beginning of the pandemic, there have been 650 cases of coronavirus linked to church gatherings. That's 650 out of 3 million. Now, if I had $3 million in the bank and you gave me $650, I wouldn't call your contribution to my account a major contribution. Compared to 3 million, 650 is a small amount. In the United States of America today, there are at least 350,000 churches. When you think about this, 650 cases spread over 350,000 churches, you realize this. In the city of Denver, there are maybe 350 to 400 churches. There would not even be one coronavirus case coming out of all of the churches that are gathered in Denver. And so, as we look at the number 650, many Christian leaders are taking the New York Times to task a little bit, that this is a lot of overkill. And so, when you look also at the fact that 650 cases flow from 40 churches only, the number is even more staggering to us to think that the New York Times would ever even write an article like this. Ed Stetzer from Christianity Today has looked in depth at this issue and has published an article, and he makes these points that he believes the New York Times should have made about churches and the coronavirus. First of all, Stetzer says, churches have cooperated. When you look at 350,000 churches around the country and you look at the government asking us to meet online and not to meet in person for 3 or 4 months, the number of churches who have obeyed the government is overwhelming, 99.999. There have been very few churches that have defied the government edict. And even in coming back physically, churches have cooperated with all the guidelines that the government has provided for them. Stetzer points out, secondly, that hyperbole helps no one. It is strange at best to use words like major and erupted when describing 650 cases. You could easily write an article with the headline, "Of the 3 million cases, only 650 are connected to churches." And so Stetzer points out the fact that exaggerating this number and trying to make a big deal out of it is not helpful. Third, the article understates the obvious. In fact, it buries something quite essential. Some of the recent cases appear to have occurred in churches that did not require masks or keep members apart. There is one church in Oregon that didn't require masks or keep members apart, and 236 coronavirus cases came out of that church. And so that even brings the number spread out over the rest of the United States down to a very minuscule number. Fourth, Stetzer points out, this kind of article causes people to dismiss important information. When the New York Times writes an article like this, it's hard to take them seriously about anything else. And so it's unfortunate that they used these kinds of words. Finally, Stetzer points out, this article misses the point. This article provides the opposite of its headlines. A few churches have made some bad decisions, and this has led to community spread. However, even in these cases, your chance of catching the virus at church is, based on the data and the story, remarkably low. Now, I have tried to be very careful in the briefings to let you know that we do not want to encourage you to come back to Calvary Church physically until you feel that you should do so. There are many who are physically compromised who should not come back at this time. But we also wanted you to be aware of the fact that Calvary is doing all that we can to make sure that physically gathering together is a safe experience. And so I just wanted to let you know that if your neighbor or somebody else quotes this article, I wanted to give you some context that you could use as you deal with people who might object to the fact that you are physically going back to church. I want to leave you with these words that we've looked at a couple of times already during this pandemic. Galatians chapter 6, verses 9 and 10. And let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. Even the New York Times. Thank you so much for watching.